Hello everyone and welcome to the KneeDown Podcast. My name is Matt Grant and I am joined today to discuss the Silverstone Grand Prix, the British GP, with my very good friend Craig Dickinson. Craig, welcome to the KneeDown Podcast.
Cheers, Matt. How you been?
I'm alright, mate. It's good to see you again. It's been a while, actually, since we had you on the podcast, and you being busy elsewhere, especially in the Junior GP paddock, it's difficult to get you on, but now I'm pleased to say we've got you back again. Are you excited today to get back on the podcast?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, being busy, I'd literally go away tomorrow night, back to the grind. But no, it's great. It's great to be back. Missed it a little bit. Miss having someone to talk MotoGP about.
See, the thing is that the business never stops because we're actually recording this tonight. We've watched MotoGP, we watched Moto3. Well, it was Moto2, MotoGP, Moto3 today in Silverstone, which I didn't like. I never do. I hate to change a routine like that. But it's literally we're recording it now. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, 9 o'clock in the evening. We're straight on it, and we're going to discuss everything to do with Silverstone today. Now, Craig, let's set the scene. British GP, Silverstone. Relatively mixed, I would not say mixed conditions as in like wet or thing, but it was not the sunniest of days, but it wasn't the coldest, but a little bit mixed for the riders. And the reason I want to bring that up is because later on we're going to discuss something called, what was it, cold tyre wear, was it? I think that's going to come up.
Cold tearing, yeah.
Cold tearing is going to come up, I think, in this conversation, so I'm going to set the scene now. But let's just tease a few moments, Craig. The dramatic events. There's one in my head that's just right in my head now, and that is Fabio Quartararo collapsing to his knees on the Hamilton straight. Just absolute devastation.
Yeah.
It hurts.
He was so unlucky because the gamble paid off immediately. I mean, to throw another one in there, it didn't in the first part, but the second part, it paid off and he was gone. And most interestingly, I thought he was going to drop. Between lap 8 and 10, it was going to go, and, then the chase was on. He was the rabbit. And that didn't happen. But, yeah, neither did the victory happen for Fabio. I don't recall. I know a few people have had that issue before, but none that severe, and to just randomly happen. I'm sure others that have had it, it's been like a collision that's knocked a sensor or something along those lines. But yeah, for him to just have it, and then to see him trying to disengage that ride height device, and just knowing it's not coming, and then pulling off. I mean, I don't know if he could have gone on. I mean, Binder did a race with it down in Termas, I think, but maybe it was wet, and so you could kind of get away with it. Maybe, yeah, it just wasn't going to happen for Fabio, or he'd checked out by then, just sort of, I'm done with it. I'm done with this. Everything. What else can I do?
And the craziest thing is that was one moment of drama at Silverstone. The drama actually began 15 minutes before that. Well, excuse me, I think it was much more than that. It was like 40 minutes plus 15 minutes. Alex Marquez down the second the race started into turn 1.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a huge surprise. Didn't see that coming, especially considering how damn good he was in the sprint. And not 11, 13 corners later, down goes brother Mark. Another Marquez down, sliding into the I don't even know what they are. Are they little boards or sandbags? Are they or what?
I think they're like little hay bales, just positioned, because you don't want to make them heavy if someone hits it.
Of course,
it's heavy enough that the wind won't blow it, but yeah, it's light enough that should you hit it, you can move it out of the way. And
so Marquez down, sliding through, and then I think I've got to mention it. Akin to what you said was Andrea Iannone headbutting a seagull. Yeah. Is Marquez headbutting this on the floor?
Yeah. He definitely went for it. I think the screen caught it, but you saw him.
He braced.
Yeah.
And then after that,
yeah, crazy.
Red flag.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is the red flag wasn't to do with any of those incidents. It was actually Alicia Spargo and Frankie Morbidelli coming together, which then spewed oil out on the track. And I've read from Simon Patterson's Twitter today, I can't remember which one it was. Apparently Frankie was just riding on the track with it just pouring out. So that's immediately why it was red flagged.
No, I mean, they didn't show Frankie riding, and I mean, his
seen
bike was in
Aleix-
the middle of the track. Aleix was done.
But when finally they did get the bike again going, they tried taking it on the track and they were like, whoa, you know. So they apparently just made it worse. So I don't know. I didn't really see much of the clean-up, though. It was pretty...
No, I mean, it was a little bit in basically where Frankie's bike was. So it was in the chicane. It was in the second part of it, from the entry to the exit. So it wasn't a massive stretch of track. But fair play to them to be on that so quickly and kind of recognize, okay, this is an issue. I mean, the track is 6 kilometers long, so they got plenty of time, really. Plenty of time. It's a 2-minute lapse. Yeah. But in biking worlds, yeah, plenty of time to kind of assess and make
It feels that way when you're at the track and you're waiting to see him around again. That feels like an eternity.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, I was reading something just before we came on, and it was saying that Race Direction got everything right this weekend. Every call they had to make, they made, and if there's an argument, it's for what the rules are, not how they were enforced this weekend. Because, yeah, you know, a lot of people were saying Alex shouldn't have restarted because he was out of the race at the time of the red flag. But, yeah, there's a little caveat in there for... within the first 3 laps, everyone can go back, providing they're fit to ride.
I'm totally fine with that. My original thought was that Alex Marquez had knocked the air fence. I thought that was the original call, where then I completely agree that it's an instant, do not restart under any conditions, because I did see today a conversation regarding Alex Marquez is unhappy with the way Silverstone officials and marshals handled his crash, because... if it was on another lap, that could have been really dangerous, especially where they were located. Yeah. There has been riders in the past who have gone down there. We've seen it just last week, of course, when in Moto E, Eric Granado goes down into the Shimano buff corner. Next thing you know, another bike comes and takes him out. That's a very keen spot for that to happen. So Alex Marquez is very unhappy with the way that they dealt with removing it. Thankfully, I think it's a bit harsh because, as we just discussed, a red flag occurred. So there was time to... manoeuvre the bike out of the way.
Look, the biggest thing you can have is you can go do training, you can read up on books, you can have the riders have their input, the safety commissions make their things, but there is no way to practice for in the moment. You just do not know how you're going to react, how everyone else is going to react, and I think that was kind of to go back to Le Mans, what kind of happened with Fabio. Not to excuse him, but he went mental at the French marshals and got reprimanded for it. But you don't know how you're going to react in the moment. It's his home GP, everyone's there to see him, there's so much hype about him, he's taken the Yamaha to pole position at his home GP, and all he wants to do is finish that race. And the marshal's saying, no, you can't. And it snapped, and it shouldn't, but we can all say it shouldn't from the sidelines.
Yeah,
probably react differently in his circumstance. Yeah.
Now, as we both know, you've got some friends, and you've also been to BSB before. The rule in that is that once you crash, that's it.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you think that's something that should be introduced in MotoGP?
I get it. It is probably the logical step. But then you don't have something like now, where, you know, Mark and Alex crashed. Frankie crashed. Frankie
crashed.
I was about to say Frankie's on an absolute downfall at the minute. Like, he just went from such a strong start to the last couple of rounds has sort of been nowhere. But then, he crashed and he's out. But he restarted and finished really strongly.
Yeah. 3 of the riders who crashed out finished strongly in the end, which is crazy. I mean, and that I don't know if is the talking point of Silverstone. Is the focal point Fabio Quartararo's Heartbreak? Is the focal point, which we'll get to in a moment, the disaster and drama of the red flag situation and both Marquez's crashing out, or something I'm excited to talk about, Marco Bezzecchi winning on the Aprilia?
Yeah.
Is that the focal point from the Silverstone GP?
And a very non-subtle message from Massimo Rivola.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
I mean, you have to at this point, because the whole saga has been, no one really knows what's going on. It all started with kind of like he said, she said, and then it was a rumor, and then Aprilia eventually had enough of it and said, he's not going anywhere, and for all the other teams, you're not getting him. And you kind of think, okay, well, yeah, no, we still don't know who's instigated this, who's maybe the driver behind it, but I think Rivoli definitely just signaled who was the instigator behind it. Like,
I'm shocked, to be fair.
Yeah.
I am shocked that happened today.
And kind of silly as well, because now that becomes the focal point. Like you literally just said, Bez won on Aprilia.
Agreed.
And the first thing I went to was the Aprilia management's handling of Martin. So, but yeah, I mean, that take nothing away from Bez. That was, he's been there in some weekends, there or thereabouts, and then the race came and just didn't work out. But this time it did. And in the sprint it did. A lot of people were saying his form in the sprint was really positive. You know, if he could get to the front early, he could be in with a chance. And yeah, I mean, he, on the grid, wanted the hard front tyre and went against it last minute because Michelin said that it's just not, the track temp's not hard enough, not hot enough. You need to go with a medium to make it work. I think he ended up on the medium. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I mean, he was going to go for the hard anyway, so whatever he was on worked.
It's been a genius idea. If it certainly would pay off, but I know I looked at yesterday's sprint. I was watching that, and as a fan of Bez, I always do look to see where Bez is finishing and how he's getting on. And yeah, 19th in the first lap, came all the way to 4th, and he was only 6/10 away from Digia in the end of that sprint, which made me think, if he had a decent start, could he have won that sprint as well? Very possibly.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of not even decent start if he'd have just qualified well. He was. Yes. I looked at him. So, I mean, to bring MotoGP the fantasy league in, someone used a double chip, so they doubled down on Bez having a result. And I went back and looked at it, and you have to play that before qualifying, which means they went based off the fact that Bez was 4th in FP1, 5th in free practice, or the qualifying practice, and 11th in free practice 2. Nowhere in there did you think Bez has got the pace to win. But definitely to be there. And for sure to challenge in what we ended up having, difficult circumstances. You know, the Friday practice was sunny, great weather. Yeah. It was perfect. They were all going for the medium front and kind of said, doesn't quite work, but it's going to be the tyre for the race. And then it rained on Saturday, rained on Sunday, and cooled the track down. And then there just wasn't enough sun to heat it back up, yeah.
I think that was a big fact this weekend because I was adamant, especially living here in the UK, I thought it was definitely going to rain. In fact, it rained just not long after the Grand Prix finished.
Yeah.
But I was anticipating rain all weekend. I thought we could get to see something rather bizarre, but I think we did see it. It's just that it wasn't rain. It's exactly what you said there. It cooled the track and it just changed the whole experience. The Ducatis didn't look strong anymore. Of course they are, but they just didn't look as dominant as they are in the sunny skies of like Thailand or something.
Yeah, I mean, and you also have to look at it. So part of why Alex crashed was, if you managed to watch the practice sessions, Mark went out on a new medium front and in turn 3 crashed because you couldn't trail brake into the turn as effectively as on a soft tyre. And if you look at the start line into turn 1, it's a very trail brake corner. It's not a heavy braking corner, it's a trail brake corner. And unfortunately, like Le Mans, you have to disengage the ride height device by braking hard. Yeah. And yeah, Alex unfortunately found out pretty quickly that you can't do that. The rest did. Maybe they saw him and were like, okay, yeah, we'll just putter through. But yeah, Alex just grabbed a handful of front brake and on lean, and the medium wasn't ready for it.
I really don't think the punishment fit the crime in that regard. I don't think he was that aggressive or too determined. He just probably felt that it felt okay at the time and just...
Yeah,
it was a fast one as well.
Yeah, it was. There was no kind of warning, no, oh, maybe you can save it. It was done. One and gone, see you later. Yeah. And
Alex has predominantly done really well in Silverstone over the past few years he's been here. And now on the Ducati, a more powerful Ducati, a more complete edition, the GP24, the championship-winning bike. He's really looking strong, and I would have really been convinced that Alex Marquez was going to do really well here today. And, you know, in that race, in the restarted part, and throughout that Grand Prix, whether it was the crash, and as we discussed, I think just before off camera actually, the mentality of the red flag coming out and then coming back into it, he's just crashed. He's been on the floor, he's had to get back up, and now he's going for it again with that momentum and that feeling of, I've got to keep my head together and I've got to go for it. I think that really affected him during that race.
For sure. I mean, so, you know, I've been there myself and spoken with many a rider about it. You go out, you're on the grid, there's all the build-up, all the adrenaline, lights go out, adrenaline dump, off you go, crashes immediately. And not just crashes immediately, bike slides off, doesn't burst the air fence, but gets to it and is done. Race is over. You're watching from the sidelines after turn one. And yeah, then you got adrenaline dump there, the disappointment of, you know, what's happened. And he probably didn't even know what had happened, because that wasn't, like you said, it wasn't, the crime didn't fit the punishment didn't fit the crime. So yeah, and then to regroup, run back last minute, get changed, get back on the track, get back out and back on the grid, yeah, is impressive, and it does affect them. The better riders can deal with it better, obviously. But yeah, I would imagine a rookie in that situation would have a hard time kind of wrapping their head around it for the first few laps anyway.
Most definitely.
But you saw it in Alex and Mark. They not least because the medium front needed time, and that was maybe the warning for both of them, the crashes, to don't overpush, build your way into it. And it took them a couple of laps. Alex was very, very tentative on the brakes and dropped back quite a bit in the early stages.
It was looking rough at one point. I mean, for all the Ducatis, you would have questioned what year it was looking at it today. Pecco Bagnaia was 11th at one point before ultimately he met his demise in Luffield. Alex and Mark dropped pretty far as well. Obviously, Mark almost crashed into drops the former
quite
turn
a few times.
Yeah,
as well. He
almost hit the back of Zarco.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Mark was behind Pecco when Pecco crashed, like at that stage, because Mark had run wide, came back, and then the next lap ran wide with Pecco, and then so maybe he wasn't behind him, but he was that far enough down. Yeah.
I wrote here it was Pecco down on lap 4.
Yeah.
So it was as early as that. But the one thing I've been saying for a while now, and I think a lot of people are missing I don't want to say missing the point, but I think they're definitely looking too far into the Pecco thing. But Pecco Bagnaia, compared to last season, is completely abysmal on the brakes compared to what he was last year. Did you see Jack Miller send it on him going into Brooklyn before Luffield? The amount of the space he was losing on the brakes was astronomical for someone who's on the factory Ducati, the bike that loves a good front end feel.
Yeah, and the bike that was impossible to pass because, one, it was fast in a straight, and two, even if you could get close, it was so good on the brakes, and he was so good on the brakes.
And yet this, it's just nowhere near. Watching the sprint was rough. I thought someone's going to bump into the back of him because he's going so slow. Yeah,
and I mean, that the Miller thing is threefold. One, so obviously Pecco's on a medium, Miller's on a soft. He's got way much more confidence and feedback. The Yamaha is unbelievable. I don't know if you saw Fabio on the brakes was near enough running into people.
But that's why Pecco couldn't get past him in Jerez, because Fabio's braking was superb. And when he rides those lines, you can't get past anyway. You couldn't get past.
No, exactly, yeah. And, well, I mean, Miller, how many of them struggled to get past Miller?
True.
Despite him falling off and then somehow miraculously coming back. So I don't know if all the tyres fell off, because it was definitely, I wrote down that the GP race was a battle of tyre choices, but it just never materialised.
We discussed in my Discord server, lap 8, lap 9, Fabio's lead was, as incredible as it is, will start to disappear. And it did a little. But before we could really tell what had happened, the ride height device had already said, I can't be bothered anymore. Fabio, you're not winning this race anymore, mate.
And he maintained it. Obviously, there was still another 10 odd laps to go, or 9 or whatever it was. But yeah, the gap came down a little bit, and then Fabio pulled it back, and then took another 10th, another 2 tenths.
Yeah.
And then, the ride height went. So it was unfortunate. But yeah, it was a really bizarre race in that, like, there were clear strategies, and maybe everyone thought, okay, this is what's going to happen, because from the sprint race, the soft front disintegrated. And so everyone thought, no, got to go with the medium, just got to make it work. But it didn't happen in the main race. Or it did, but it didn't do what they thought it would do.
Yeah. Also, the dynamics of the bikes. Would the Ducati have completely destroyed the softs?
Yeah.
Maybe the Yamahas have been able to manage it a little bit better. Maybe the Aprilia, if they went for the soft, would they struggle? Aprilia is a very odd one at the moment, because obviously there's only Bez and Raul Fernandez and Savadori being a test ride. I don't think it's fair to put him in that racing category, but for those two, it's just them two just trying to figure things out. There's no Ayagura, unfortunately, so it's difficult to understand what would have happened if they chose a different tyre option. But out of all the teams, I think the Yamaha, as long as it can get to the front like Fabio demonstrated, even if they're using the soft, as long as he can stay to his own lines, I think he should be fine. It should work in his favours, where the other bikes, Ducati especially, they can take liberties. They can choose whatever tyre they want, and they'll still be very competitive.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at the sprint, Fabio got bullied. But in the main race, what saved him was the gamble for the soft front, and the rest being on mediums, being tentative. He was gone before they even got onto any sort of straight of significance.
Lap 1 second lead is what I wrote down.
Yeah, so from there on, it was race your lines, And I had the discussion with my old man yesterday. I was like, if Yamaha can do that for 1 lap, if Fabio can do that for 1 lap for his qualifying, which was unbelievable, why can't they do it once in a race?
Yeah.
But there you go, that's why. If there's
You're
someone
halfway
in front
there.
of them, they can't. Yeah.
You're halfway there. If you can get on pole position, have that 1 lap where you can pull a second, you've just got to do the rest of it now, and that's finished.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fabio did his bit. The M1 just didn't do it. But I think something I wrote here, I wrote it in caps, was Miller up to second on the second lap. We had a Yamaha 1-2, and when we had
Honda third.
and a Honda third in Silverstone.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And let's just say something. They moved the Silverstone race forward, and so there was a decrease in crowd from the year before, and then maybe the weather as well, but for whatever reason. But the racing was unbelievable in
All three.
Every category was unreal. And I'm pretty sure if we'd have seen the support races, it probably would have been the same.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it was unreal. Every single race did not disappoint. And yeah, get them back when the crowds can go.
And what do you think was the best race of today, if you had to put?
It's crazy because you had chaos in MotoGP. Moto2 should have been a done and deal. Wouldn't have even been a race, but it became a race.
Moto2 was incredible today,
and Moto3 became a race because the 4-man and the man who was going to run away with it was a naughty boy in qualifying and got sent to the back of the grid, and so it became a race. So yeah, it was wild. It was chaos in all 3 categories, and spectacular. And the track leads itself to that kind of racing because if you can get away like Fabio did, you're gone. But as you saw in Moto2 and Moto3, if you can't get away, there is no getting away.
There was a lot of effort in Moto3 to try and get away as well from anyone to stop them from, especially Rueda, that's his style.
Yeah.
But he couldn't.
No.
Max Keeles was there. Everyone was trying to get through. Carpe was there at one point. Everyone was just trying to, Lunetta was there, no, you're not going. They're on the coattails pulling him back.
Yeah, I honestly thought Almanza was going to run away with it because that Leopard is a missile in a straight line. I don't know what they do to it, but it is unreal.
It has been forever, hasn't it?
Yeah. And
when Foggia was there, when
been.
Masia was there, when Even when Quartararo was there back in the day.
It was just a missile in a straight line. And I thought, okay, he just had a rough qualifying, but he was there all weekend, there or thereabouts at the front. So I thought, okay, the Almanza from Termas, when he blew everyone away as a wild card, is finally coming to fruition. But sadly didn't work out for him.
But he was also the victim of trying to escape and then them pulling him back. If he had done, I don't think anyone would have stopped him because of that speed he had.
Yeah.
But constantly getting beaten up
was mired down in the pack. Like if someone did break, Rueda was going to be the one to reel them back, and then it would be whether the rest could cling on to Rueda as he did it. But yeah, it was definitely set up for Almanza, and he got to the front pretty quickly, stayed up front pretty quickly, but yeah, just didn't work out. And then he got just stumbled down the order.
It got messy.
Yeah. Once you're in the pack, I think Daniel Alonso has really been the only one to show that kind of level of racecraft of pick his moments. Doesn't matter whether he's leading it or at the back of it. He'll still come out and win the race. And I've not seen anyone do it since.
The last person I would say before him was probably someone like Joan Mir.
Yeah,
he had that inept ability to just say, yeah, you know, I'm happy now. I'll disappear. But no one's done it as good as Alonso, though. He is definitely the forefront of that one. But I think for this weekend, I don't know if everyone's aware of the Moto3 incident that put Jose Rueda at the very back of the grid. So I just want to touch on that for a minute, Craig. It's just the fact that Rueda was slowing down and his qualifying lap was overtaken by Piqueras and, was it Carpe?
So he was at the front of a chasing pack, and he made a mistake and then started to slow down. So to give reference to it, he completed that lap 1.4 seconds off of his own pace. So that, in theory, is a slowing down. Slow sectors would have been pinged up somewhere. And where he got penalised for was Quiles overtook him into the chicane, and you think, fine, fair enough. But what Rueda then did was just straight cut across the nose of the chasing pack, which happened to be Piqueras.
Yep.
And
who was on a personal best lap time at the time.
And Piqueras immediately threw his hand up to say, what are you doing? You know, like, at least look. And I think the punishment was harsh, really harsh for what it was. Maybe a long lap or a 3-place grid penalty. But I think what they wanted to do was send a message and say, doesn't matter who you are, rules are the rules. This was reckless. And yeah, I said in your Discord, a lot, what kind of goes unknown is that the race stewards don't just make a decision and that's it. Like, they will call the rider or representative to the race steward's office. They will present you with footage and probably CCTV footage from angles that you don't see on the broadcast. And they will explain, this is what you've done and this is what your penalty is going to be. And you sign off on it before anyone else knows. So you know about it. It doesn't just come out of the blue. And I think at that point you can, if you wanted to, say like, well, you know, there was this and that, and you know, I can show you my data to prove that I wasn't the bad guy. But for the large part, if they bring you into that room, you're getting done.
Yeah, it's inevitable. It's already done. It's already signed. Just waiting for you to put your signature on it.
Yeah, and then, you know, we had this discussion all weekend. Like, the problem is that people tend to clip and show without context certain things. You know, a rider will say something.
Yeah, TNT did it.
Yeah, and then that's what they did. They showed you the overtake, which didn't look that bad. For all intents and purposes, you'd be like, what? Piqueras doesn't know how to race? Like, why is Rueda getting stung? But when you see the whole lap, and yeah, then it makes sense, and the whole situation. Because immediately after the TNT clip ended, you see Piqueras throw his hand up, and yeah.
The thing is, my point to that was there is absolutely no way that Rueda could defend against that to say, I didn't know, because when you're a rider who's been overtaken in a qualifying lap, there is no way in hell that lap is going to be faster than your best lap time because you've just been overtaken. So the clear thing for me would simply just be, forget it, I've just been overtaken, this lap's gone. But to come back onto the track, I actually do agree with the penalty, but I agree with what you said afterwards. a long lap penalty or maybe a double would have been sufficient rather than... Because I do foresee, they are young lads, they're young men. And if there's maybe a little bit of arguing and a bit of argy-bargy, maybe it might just slow down in front of you on your next lap, to stop you from getting pole.
Yeah.
And it could get messy. So I think it's the right thing.
Thing is, the way I look at it, and they did this before with Mark, they put Mark at the back of the grid for reckless riding or something, I can't remember, in Moto2. And what struck me there was, if you look at the difference, like, for instance, Max Cook was in the Moto3, and this is no disrespect to Max Cook, but he was not on the same level, because, I mean, he's 10 kgs heavier, he's been riding a superbike for the last 5 years, and then got a one-off opportunity. But he was 5 seconds off the pace, and now you're putting Rueda behind him. Everything they do is towards safety. So why are you putting the fastest guy at the back of the grid to come ploughing through the rookies, the newer riders, slower riders than that guy? It's much better if you keep him where he is in his position and penalise him with a long lap or a double long lap or a ride through, whatever, to give him the same effect. Yeah. But I don't think putting them at the back of the grid is the safest way to go about that, especially at that skill difference. Rueda was the quickest, and he won the race. Still from the back of the grid, but he puts himself at danger as well as the others around him in getting back up to the front.
I think that's a good point. That's actually something I missed, to be honest with that, because even from being a biking, virtual gaming content creator myself, playing online with slower riders, you do tend to bump the back of them. I'm a slower rider to you, for example. You're rapid at those games. Maybe I would hold you up in that situation, and that's just a virtual side. Yeah, we can laugh it off. But real life, that's serious, that's dangerous. When a rider is absolutely full pelt and you're a little bit tentative and you make a mistake, yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way, but I think that's a damn accurate representation of what could possibly be done. So a double long lap penalty, you're still riding with the same people, you go into the long lap loop, you come out and you do it again. It seems fair, doesn't it?
I mean, Yamanaka did it,
I'm with you.
and from a previous race, and it stung him, but he was able to recover. And Rueda probably would have done the same. And look, by no means did Rueda put anyone in harm's way or in danger.
No, of course not.
Coming through, but it just, if your message is to not be irresponsible, don't give them every opportunity to be irresponsible on their way back through. Like, put David Munoz or Luca at the back of the grid.
It would be carnage.
Yeah, they're not known for being polite and methodical.
Well put. Well put.
Yeah.
So if they went through there, you're probably talking a bit of argy-bargy, a couple of barrels, and yeah, it could get a bit messy, couldn't it? I think that would be the same with any sport. Depending on the rider in question, it would be very dangerous to put someone at the back of the grid. But moving on to Moto2, because I think Moto2 deserves a massive place to talk about today.
For sure.
Before we get back to MotoGP and discuss the final details. But Moto2, wow. Who put Senna Aegis on winning a Grand Prix this year? Not to take anything against Senna Aegis, but he's always going to be there, near about, but I think the likes of Manuel Gonzalez and some of the other riders would always be that little step ahead. But he did it, and what a patient move right at the final bit. Let the riders in front worry about Vale. I'll just wait for the moment.
Yeah. If you watch that race, if anyone deserved the win, it was Senna, because he had unbelievable speed through the corners. He just couldn't do anything down the straight. And even worse, he couldn't defend himself down the straight, let alone overtake people. And I don't know how it works, whether they all get assigned engines, and the engines will be at different stages of their life cycle. So there's a possibility his engine maybe is not the fastest one there, even though they're all the same. It could have had more miles on it. It could have been a case that he's heavier or a different build, so he's not aerodynamically as efficient as the others.
I do think he's slightly taller, isn't he?
Yeah, and you look at Alonso. Alonso was a missile down the straight.
Yeah.
But he's got the same engine as everyone else, so something was different in his build-up or setup. And the other factor is maybe Senna went with a slightly shorter gear ratio, because the one thing I noticed is that not only did he not pass anyone down the straight, but he was coming out of the slipstream halfway down the hanger straight, which if your weakest part is the straight, you're going to stay in that slipstream as long as you can.
You would think
unless
so.
You're on the limiter. So maybe it's a factor of everything. Maybe it's none of them, and he was just a heavier dude. But I mean, wow, he was unreal and so smart.
Genius.
And they did say it on the TNT broadcast. Aaron Canet never goes for those type of moves. If he's second and second's the best, he will settle for it. He won't force a move, and he did, and it cost him. And Hodgson said, I can't be angry at Canet because I've said he always needed that bit of aggression. And lo and
He
behold,
did the right thing. He did.
Yeah, he did. He went for it. I mean, he had nothing else to lose. Gonzalez was out of it. It was his opportunity to get maximum points, and it could have been a lot worse. He could have crashed at that point and not scored anything. But I think he got fourth or maybe even fifth from it. Yeah. So he still gained on Gonzalez. But for me, Manu threw that race away. He had half a second on everyone else.
He was rapid.
Yeah. And I missed the opening lap, so I don't know what happened for him to be further back. But yeah, and then all he needed was patience. He sort of went for a move but didn't fully commit and allowed Bottas to basically close the door on him. And I don't think Barry's at fault there at all. I think Manu is, because he didn't make it obvious that he was coming past, and then just expected Barry to know that he's there. When he's never been in his line of sight.
He was never through. Barry had no chance to give him any more space. I mean, that's why when Barry went to the floor, he was gesticulating to say, "What are you doing? Like, come on, man!
Yeah,
you should know better." But this is a absolute carbon copy of Sam Lowe's and Johan Zarco's crash from I think 2016. Exact same corner. The rider on the left hand side feels like he can go through, but because of the way that corner closes in. It was a little bit wider out, or maybe the corner wasn't so sharp going in towards Luffield. I think it would work, but it doesn't. It doesn't work when they go into that part together and that rider hasn't seen you. He's full lean angle. He has no idea now that you're travelling into his side, and that's obviously when it all went wrong.
And I mean, the result would have been the same if Manu was further along. We've seen Mark and Pecco collide and both fall out when they hit kind of square on, but Barry hit Manu's front wheel, which took it out and took Barry out. But for me, there's the fault with Manu. I mean, he's clipping his front wheel. Manu at all points would have known that Barry's coming in. And to kind of further illustrate that, Senna did it so many times in that race where he had to grab the front brake.
Yeah.
Because he knew it was coming. You're telling me your less experienced teammate is capable of doing it and you aren't? For me he threw it away, and from there I thought, okay, this is Canet's race to lose, because Canet was the only one who could chase Manu.
Yeah,
and he's had form there before, and David Alonso and Moreira were not letting him go.
Unbelievable. Moreira was fantastic. I thought Moreira was going to win it.
Yeah,
the speed he demonstrated, and again, little pocket-sized rider, rapid down those straights.
Yeah, and David Alonso, I thought for sure was just fighting to be there.
Just having fun with it. Yeah.
But they always worked. His lines were so bizarre that you would think he was lunging crazily without thought. But he made it every corner. Every overtake he made it stick. It was so crazy. And I mean, of those four, any one of them would have deserved the win. I think
absolutely, I totally
you
agree.
wouldn't have been disappointed with any of them winning the race. And it was wild. And Senna played it smart and waited. And he needed that to happen to win anyway. But some right place, right time. That's how I titled it.
But he had to be there as well. He had to, as you say, he had to be there to do it. You can't say he was lucky. Well, no, he was there in that position.
Yeah.
And as you say, all four of those deserved it. And if there was a four-person podium, then that would have been time to bring it in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Four winners for sure. All four of them. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was incredible. And yeah, that's, I mean, more or less what I had to say. I think everyone's missed an opportunity there for the Moto2. It was a race of the ages.
No, yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I think on the actually on the what do you call it, the MotoGP official one.
Yeah.
It was actually Matt Burt who said that, that was the race of the ages, and I was like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you've done it.
It's such an easy one there. It's just asking. It's begging to be said.
It really is, isn't it?
I will appease.
Well, I think the two runner-up races towards MotoGP were absolutely fantastic. I think it's just a shame for me that we didn't get it in the order we usually do, because I think that would have been a nice, perfect crescendo, having an Aprilia win out of nowhere from Marco Bezzecchi. But I thought the whole day was fantastic. Ending on Moto3 was terrific as well. But there's something I wrote down here that I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to quickly segue back into MotoGP, because I don't think we're finished with all the details yet. But
No.
the Fabio Quartararo ride height device locking on. If there was a track for it to lock and not disengage, I would probably say Silverstone is the bottom of the list that you would want that to happen to. And maybe Phillip Island.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, fast flowing tracks where you need everything that can help you to help you turn. And yeah, that ride height device isn't going to help there.
No.
And a lot of trail braking into turns, yeah, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's a good segue for the cold tear, because yeah, if you don't have that confidence in your front end, which can sometimes come from the rear end, especially if that rear end isn't going back into its original position.
Yeah. What can it do?
Yeah, you're gonna struggle through the turn. So yeah, maybe that's a fairer analogy to put on Fabio as to why he didn't, just try and carry on.
And I
Probably
think
wasn't
it locked in
happen.
Copse.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get through Maggots and Beckett's. That's where he was slamming on to try and get it to disengage. That's the only way they can do this. Maverick Vinales had this happen to him a few years ago in the Aprilia. Was it Catalunya? Can't remember.
Have been.
Or
I know
Portimao?
that it's not as common as you would think, considering it's electronics, but it has happened quite a few times.
But I do recall Maverick, and it was to the point where when they pulled into the garage, Maverick had his hands up in the air going, what the hell? And it was flat.
Yeah.
Like, completely broken, stuck. And he was trying everything to try and move it, and wouldn't do it.
Wasn't it off the start? Because I remember Aprilia having issues with their sort of launching devices.
This was, it must have been one of his first years when he was with Aprilia, because I remember strictly thinking that this was the moment the commentators were hyping it up and that everyone couldn't believe why. And I do really feel like it was Catalunya, but the feeling was, what the hell, why is he just slowing down so much? And then, obviously now, after experience, we can work out quickly. But then we were like, what's he doing? He's slamming on the brakes, And when it got back, it was just completely flat.
Yeah.
And it was looked so small.
Yeah, I mean, they do it a little bit in the drag racing scene to lower the profile and kind of get more direct weight onto the rear to squish the rear tyre down for a bigger contact patch. And they'll extend the rear swing arm out as well as lower the rear suspension. Plus, in a straight line, you don't really need your suspension doing a lot. It's a quarter mile, if that. But yeah, on a MotoGP bike with some turns, left and right, some fast, some slow.
Couple of chicanes.
You need it. And yeah, for sure, Maggots and Beckett's you would want to be able to turn one way or another. I think Mark had an issue where he messed up one of them, and then I think that was where he got overtook by Miller or maybe even Zarco, because he just ran a bit wide through one of them and then was just completely derailed for the next two turns, right and then left onto the straight. So yeah, you need everything to be in working order at the very least.
What track do you reckon you might get away with if it's stuck? Now, you're never going to win if the race... but what could you nurse home, do you reckon? Maybe something like Red Bull Ring?
Potentially, yeah, because it's very sort of stop and go.
You might get away with that.
Yeah, look, I don't think you're gonna get a podium out of it. Maybe if you had a 30-second lead and somehow managed to only lose 1 or 2 seconds a lap. But yeah, Red Bull Ring's probably the one track where it's there. Maybe Red Bull Ring pre-chicane.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. But I do recall, as you mentioned earlier, Brad Binder had this and he raced with it. And I don't think he was miles away.
No, he
wasn't.
Was it
Argentina?
So it was Argentina in the wet because his brother was ahead of him.
21 then?
Yeah, so it was the 1 year Darren rode in MotoGP and Brad's, I don't know if it was a collision or if it was because, I mean, it was torrential rain. I remember that. So maybe water got in the electronics. But yeah, the ride height went and Brad finished the race with it.
Just flat.
Yeah, every time you saw him, it was flat. So I don't know if it was intermittent or certain sections or it was the whole race. I can't recall. But yeah, he did finish the race. And I think he scored points. If he didn't score points, he crashed because of that. But it was, yeah, he put up a good show in all things considered.
That's certainly one for to look into, isn't it? Because I'm actually genuinely curious now to see how many times they've broken. Because it seems that when this happens, we all go up in arms and we say, why do we have ride height devices? Why are they a thing in MotoGP? Can't wait till 2027.
Yeah.
But it's not that often.
No, exactly. I mean, they do more races now than they ever have in terms of in the calendar year. And then you double that because they do sprint races as well. I didn't even remember the Vinales one, but yeah, that's 3 in all of those races that they've been in. That's 3 malfunctions in a race.
It's a couple of on the launch devices too. I think Marquez, as you say, he's had 1 or 2 as well. But it's not that many, really, with all things considered.
Yeah, considering that, it's, 20-odd riders on the grid, 44 races, including sprints, a year. Yeah, it really doesn't happen all that often in the grand scheme of things. But when it does, it's generally a pivotal point with a key character.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
Unless it happens more, it's just that we don't see it, because maybe we're not privy to it because it's not so in our vision.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's very different to the aerodynamic conundrum when you see the riders either crash or they get bumped into and half the wing falls off. They still do really well. Mark's done it several times, either through his own fault or someone else riding into him. And yeah, he's ridden an entire race with only half of the whole aero package. So obviously very different to the ride height.
Yeah.
And how it affects things.
But there was conversation regarding removing the aero this weekend from some teams because of the headwinds that was produced here in Silverstone. The last time this happened was Raul Fernandez last season in Phillip Island. He ran a completely aero-free bike, and obviously it was gorgeous to see. But I was wondering if anyone was going to do that this weekend, but nobody did. Everyone's ran complete full aero packages as far as I'm concerned.
And I mean, I think they were expecting... Someone was saying it was going to be 50 kilometers an hour wind gusts, which at that point, it's you're going to feel that and it's going to affect things. I don't think it got that heavy. There was wind for sure, but I don't think it was to that level. And the problem you have at Phillip Island is it's straight off the ocean.
Yeah.
And so it's also mental. You've had Declan on before, and I don't know if you asked him there, but yeah, it's the type to do. I don't know if you saw the replay of Kelso's crash, where he basically turned too quick and the front wheel came up. Yes, I
did. Yeah, looked like he wheelied. Do you think that was the aero or the wind, or do you reckon it's just too much throttle?
Too much throttle in between. So possibly what could have happened is that in the change of direction, his wrist has gone with the change.
Okay,
and he's kind of unintendedly given it too much squirt. And it is something that happens with riders. Subconsciously, they're unaware that they're actually opening or closing a throttle in turning left and right. It's the shoulder position or something along those lines. So I think that's my best guess as to what happened. But yeah, front came up, and that's what would happen in Phillip Island. Maybe not to that extent, but it would just wash the front away, and you'd have no idea.
Yeah, you'd be
the
scratching
gust
your head.
just comes in. Yeah.
So, regarding a couple more notes I've got here, I want to just touch back on Marco Bezzecchi, because I think we really need to discuss the fact that it's Aprilia's first win of the season, and let's be honest, it's the only good... It's the second good thing to come out of Aprilia this season, the first being Ayagora. His rookie season, his start was awesome. But this is the second and only good thing we've seen so far from Aprilia. Last season, we had Maverick, Batmav dominate Kota. Aprilia's back again, Aprilia on top, whoa, Maverick, and nothing happened afterwards. Is it pessimistic to think that this is a one-off, or is it optimistic to think that we could see more of Marco Bezzecchi and Aprilia? And, God forbid, if Martin comes back healthy and decides to stay with the Noale factory, could this be something now to be excited about?
I think someone made a really interesting point. I think it was on the broadcast with that Rivoli message. that relationship is done.
True, it feels that way from an outside perspective.
It's possibly beyond repair, but both parties have another 2 years to go. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. But Bez, I think, is still a really good rider, and he did say something interesting. You know, he thanked the factory, he thanked his fans, he thanked the team for believing in him to push the project forward. And I think maybe now he believes that. You know, at first, yeah, you had Agora, who had no reference before, so you got to remember, Bez came from the best bike on the grid to ride the Aprilia a completely different way to that. Agura came from a Moto2 with no expectations and rode a pretty good bike. Obviously, because he was able to do what Bez did with it in Silverstone, maybe not as well, but along those lines. So I think the Aprilia is good. One thing that's kind of a takeaway is the Aprilia is very good on low grip tracks. And I said to you, Aragon's going to be difficult for Aprilia and for Yamaha because the Marquez brothers on a Ducati in Aragon.
Yeah, of course.
Not going to see anything. But I remember last year they resurfaced Aragon and it was horrendous for grip. So the Aprilia could be strong
do
there.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, last year's also had the rain, didn't they? They had the rain as well, which even washed any little bit of grip that they'd found.
Yeah.
So that could get even... If it rains again, which I don't think it will, but who knows, it could be even worse. But maybe then the Aprilia will do okay.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I know Silverstone is not... It's a fast track, but it's not known for having the highest top speed. But what I will say is in the sprint race, Bez was, on average, the fastest rider in a straight line. So the Aprilia is not slow. And we've all known it can turn. So, yeah, Aragon, maybe it could come back. I think, realistically, Bez will probably be looking for a top 10 as close to possible as the top 5.
Yeah.
To just continue the development, you know. Sometimes, you know, this weekend was all about right place, right time. And Bez was there to pick up on Fabio's downfall or unfortunate mechanical. So, yeah, I think for Bez, for sure, it's confidence boosting. I think it might be getting ahead of ourselves to say, yeah, he's going to be there again in Aragon. I think this was the issue Aprilia had, was they had some really good tracks and some bang average tracks where they were nowhere. And I think that's still going to be the case.
I think we've been through some of those average tracks for them.
Yeah.
And that's why it's looked a bit bleak for your Raul Fernandez, your Agoras, and... Because, I mean, Agora went from being the rookie sensation to now being the second fiddle behind Fermin Aldeguer. Yeah. And that's no knock on Ayagora, it's just simply that the bike just doesn't work in those tracks.
He's sort of gone back to where we all expected him to be as a rookie. You know?
Pretty much, yeah.
he possibly may have fallen on his own sword. Like he just set his own bar so high, so fast true. At the beginning. But for sure, I think when Jorge comes back, depending what version of Jorge comes back, I mean, it's one thing when he came back in Qatar, it was no expectations whatsoever. And did the sprint, was great. Morning warm-up, he was there. And you thought,
He
okay,
actually
maybe
passed
he's
Pecco during the sprint in Qatar.
and you thought maybe in the main races, he's going to struggle for fitness, but this could be something. And then, I think I've said it to you. I definitely said it to a few people. I thought his whole move was brought on by maybe looking to retire because, you don't come out of a lengthy stay in hospital urinating through a tube and think everything's going to be great. It changes things mentally, and to have someone break 7 of your ribs in the back, puncturing a lung, that's a moment where you go, well, hang on, I've won a world championship, no factory team wants me. What am I doing? But fair play if he comes back, stronger man than I, and if he comes back fit and fighting ready, I think he'll bring the Aprilia back. But now, is that relationship soured because it turns out he was sniffing around somewhere else?
Yeah, and the fact that Massimo Rivoli, the second the Grand Prix had ended, whether it was just emotion, just feeling at the time, or maybe he was prompted, we don't know. But to immediately mention it and to knock your star rider is a bit, a bit uncouth.
And look, the other thing is, we drama sells at the end of the day, and we could be falling victim here to maybe what Rivola said is, look, Jorge, this bike can win. Come back. Let's win together.
Yeah, let's put all that to the side and come back and let's do it together.
Yeah.
True.
It could be as simple as that, because from what I understand, Martin has said, he wants a clarification on the terms of his contract, which the clause is, I can talk to other teams if you're not performing. And Aprilia are going, never mind performing, you haven't raced.
Yeah, you've not even been here.
What are we talking about?
But there's no way they can't say he's not performing now with the Bezzecchi win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that just basically puts all the ball back into Aprilia's court.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Even if it's just the one win, it's like, well, what proof have you got now? Are you going to say we're not performing?
And this puts a lot of pressure on Martin, unbeknowingly, because he came in as a world champion. Everyone knows he's the bee's knees. But now he hasn't raced in a long time, and Bez has already won. Yeah.
And he's now getting used to it, and he's developing it. And
yeah, I mean, pretty quickly, if he doesn't come in and deliver this year, he could be the number 2 next year.
True. And if this has happened, and Massimo Rivoli, the team from Noale, all now think, well, sod you, Martin, your attitude stinks. We'll put all our eggs in one basket with Marco Bezzecchi, and he'll do it. And you can come back and you'll get the bike that, as you say, he's the number 1 rider. You'll get the bike he's been riding. You tell me, who knows? It could go that sour.
And let's face it, every team wants to win, but every Italian team wants an Italian rider to win. It's, Ducati have Mark. Yes, they are happy Mark's winning on a Ducati. They'd be a lot happier if Pecco was winning on the Ducati.
True, like they have been.
It's national pride, and the Italians are very passionate about it. And I think Aprilia, more than anything, would love nothing more. I mean, they run the Italian flag in their team colours. They'd love nothing more than to be behind the number 1 Italian rider. And I think Bez could do that. I've heard a lot of rumours this weekend about Bagnaia leaving Ducati. I don't see it, but
me neither.
It doesn't stop them going, Pecco's in a very precarious position right now. Like you said, you saw his face after the crash. I think he's done. Like, mentally, this season's over. It's still a long way to go, but the momentum's rolling with Mark. And like I said to you, Mark's crashed out of three races now, 3 main races, double points on offer from a sprint. and still leads the championship by 63 points over Pecco.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it with Pecco is that it is a long season. Fair enough. But you say that optimistically. It's a long season. When you're in a negative, it's a long season.
Yeah.
There's a complete difference to that approach. And unfortunately, for now, from watching Pecco over the past 4 years being the bee's knees for Factory Ducati, winning double MotoGP World Championships, excuse me, almost winning a third in a row, to being the absolute king on the brakes. His first win came against Marquez in Aragon. In Marquez's back garden. Yeah, granted, Marquez was on the very failing Honda. But he was beating him every time in the brakes. Every time Marquez went through, he'd respond, repose to the next corner, parry again, and through. And seeing him now struggle, as we mentioned earlier, this is not the bike that Pecco likes at all. And I do feel really sorry for Pecco, because a lot of people are turning this now into, the mental games of Marquez. I don't even think he's paying that much attention to Marquez. What he's paying attention to what Marquez is doing is riding that Ducati, not the championship, not everything else. He's thinking, how the hell can I get this feeling back? All we've changed is a few bits. It's a GP 24.5, and he is having a tough time with the front end of that Ducati. And I think if you ask any rider in the world, whether you're Marquez on Honda, whether you're Marco Bezzecchi when he first jumped onto the Aprilia, whether you're Rossi in Ducati, whether you're Lorenzo on Honda, don't care how good you are or how good your resume is, if the feeling's not there, you can't do anything. And you do not trust it, you don't believe in it, you don't feel good, and then you have these moments where you crash, you collapse your knees, and you think, what do I need to do?
Yeah, please, something go right. I mean, I had it with a rider last year, where, for all intents and purposes, everything was there to win. The win just never happened. And you do. I saw him get to that point where something switched in him, and it was like, this is just never going to happen. Like, maybe I'm the problem. Like, and that's horrible to be at in that position, because it's circumstantial. It's not that you are the problem. It's that things aren't lining up. But you then go to that place. I mean, Pecco probably is in that place, and what doesn't help him is Mark's doing it on the same bike. And there's a very famous Greek folklore, don't fly too close to the sun. I think they all forgot how good Mark is for the years where he had a not so competitive package, and they were beating him. And they thought, okay, yeah, he's not that good. I'm obviously human. Yeah, I'm the bee's knees here. I'm beating Mark. They all said and we were talking about Dixon, and I remember Dixon beating Pedro Acosta. And,
not this
again. He's the next Marc Marquez, and I've just beat him. And he lived to regret that heavily.
He did. He really
did. And he even said that himself. I got caught up in the moment. It's just thing just happened. It was the first thing that came to my head. It was a rush of blood, and he sort of regretted saying it. But yeah, it's that. Pecco said, I can't wait to race with Mark. Everyone says I've got to be. If I beat him, then what other questions will you have of me? A lot at the minute, a lot. And I think I said it at the beginning. I don't understand why Ducati did it. I do, because Mark will sell bikes and he'll win you a championship. But at what cost?
Upsetting their star. Yeah. But you know what? I've been thinking about this for a while, actually, and I think now is a great time to segue into it. Is a question now that I don't think anyone's really looked into. Is the GP25 Ducati that good, or is it Marquez doing the work again like he used to do with Honda?
Oh, 100%. The beauty of it is there's three of them. Digi's on a 25 as well.
Exactly my point. And Pecco's on it. Digi's not done that much compared. 2 podiums, not bad.
Yeah. And then when you look at it, the 24, Alex is really leading there.
Smashing it.
Yeah. Aldegar is there and not. Frankie is there and not. And so you could kind of like for like it in the, you know, if you just looked at results on the surface value, the 25 is the better package because Mark's leading the championship, and the rest just aren't making it work yet. So that for me then says Mark's making the best out of a bad situation, and maybe that's what's working for Mark, is he knows how to ride through problems and around problems, and yeah, I think Pecco said it, that because Mark spent all of last year on the 23, he doesn't know how good the 24 was. So for me as in Pecco, he's saying, I don't have that 24 feeling. Whereas Mark didn't know, he's got 20 Christmases all at once. He's not going to care whether that front feeling's there or not. He went from a 23 to a 25, full factory spec, all the bells and whistles. And so, yeah, in that sense, he's moving along. It's the same as Bez and Agura. Bez had the best bike on the grid, went to an Aprilia. Agura had a Moto2, went to a MotoGP bike. There's no reference. And so for Mark, that 24 reference is gone.
The reason why I hate saying it like this, because it feels like I'm having a knock at Alex Marquez, but I'm really not, because I'm actually a big fan of Alex Marquez, and I was really excited to see him win the season. But he hasn't done a lot in the Premier Class of MotoGP. Second, he got to the GP24. It did come at a time where Marquez was also on the GP25. There's also a lot of conversation about him sharing setups and data and things. But Alex Marquez has never looked this good, ever. But he's on the GP24. So is now the GP24 enhancing that ability of Alex Marquez, where the GP25 is, decreasing the skill the skill set of the likes of Digia and Pecco Bagnaia, and even Marc Marquez to a certain degree? Because Mark won't be happy with losing to Alex. He'll say sure. He's happy, but he won't be. Nobody wants to lose to their brother. It's brother rivalry, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And funnily enough, there was an interview, and there was one line in particular that stuck out, where Mark said, "Wow, this is weird. I always felt sorry for Alex because he was always my brother. Yeah. He was always living up to me. But now you just asked Alex that question about me. I'm his brother now."
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark's never had to deal with that, plain and simply.
No, he's always been the Marquez, and the other one is the Marquez brother, as you say.
Exactly. And so much so that even the family relationship, they joke, and Mark sort of joked and said, "My dad's neutral, my mum supports Alex."
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, because
he's done enough winning. Let Alex win now.
Yeah, exactly. And so Mark, but there's a point I wanted to actually raise, is in the sprint race, and you kind of mentioned it, and we spoke about it just before. In the sprint race, if Mark didn't make the mistake on lap 2, would Alex have passed him?
Yeah, I'm still yet to see a proper lunge.
Yeah, to win that race. And I was hoping the question would have been answered in the main race. But it was kind of the opposite. Mark didn't hesitate to overtake Alex.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah. He doesn't he won't. I don't think he would care if it was the Queen or King on the motorcycle. Yeah. He is overtaking them.
Yeah.
He's going for it.
Yeah, if he needs to. The only time I've seen him not was Le Mans last week. And that was because it was just not feasible. And Mark finally said to himself, "You don't have to do that. You don't have to push. Second is enough."
Actually, for a bit of controversy, the only time I've not seen Marquez overtake was Lorenzo in 2015.
Oh, no. Podcast.
Sorry, I don't have that little dig. But no, you're absolutely right. I think I have been saying for a while, because I have mentioned this even in previous videos, that Alex is no longer the Marquez brother. He is Alex Marquez, stands on his own feet, and the craziest thing is the lad's got 2 world championships. Yeah. And he's still the other Marquez, but I think we're seeing a difference now, and it's great to see.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, look, let's to answer your question about is it the GP24 or is it Alex? Again, like the GP25, there's 3 of them on the grid. Fair enough, Furman's a rookie, but he has shown how good that bike is.
Podium
and
finish?
I think for sure Furman's talent is definitely there, but his level of experience on a MotoGP bike is maybe being overshadowed a little bit by the GP24. Like it's overperforming for where I would expect him to be. Definitely the 2/3 in Le Mans were not expected this year. I thought if he'd have got top 10s, that would have been respectable. But yeah, 2 podiums is wild. And then Frankie on the other one. Frankie has been the bridesmaid in a championship year before on the Yamaha. Frankie has talent. I would say on par, depending what cap you wear, maybe better than Alex, maybe worse than Alex. But I think he's a good like for like with Alex, and is not making it work to the extent Alex is.
No, he isn't. You're right.
So for sure, that GP24 is a good package, is a great bike, and anyone riding it would like to think they'd be doing what Alex is doing. But thinking and doing are very different. And I think Alex has come a long way. I remember in his Honda days when I think he got a podium in Aragon.
Yes, he did. He had 2 podiums, I think, with the Repsol Honda team.
Yeah, and that showed you...
Almost won.
Yeah, that showed you who he was as a rider. When, if it's kind of like a fair fight, you know, he had a really bad bike, but he had the track experience and knowledge because they grew up on the Aragon circuit. But that kind of leveled things out in a way. And he delivered with the best of them.
He did have some good results on the LCR Honda sometimes as well.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will give to the Fabio-Alex comparison is that this is Frankie's second year on a GP24. This is Alex's first year on the GP24. Yeah. So I think the difference in that jump from 23 to 24 for him has been night and day. I do wonder how much information they share with Mark to help bring them both closer, because it seems that since Alex has been... Mark and Alex reunited at Gracenia now in this situation, Alex thrives. He just keeps on doing better and better. Yeah. And I think this rival with Mark is helping him grow to be that believer in himself and that part that I can. So I think it's only a matter of time before we do see the race showdown where Alex comes out on top of Marquez.
Yeah. And look, maybe
the sprint was the starting point.
Yeah, for sure. And why I had that question was, I looked through the times. Alex was the only one to lap every lap sub 2 minute in the sprint race. So he not only managed the tyres, he had the outright speed. And for sure, something would have, like if you looked at Mark's pace, he dropped into like a 2:01 on lap 8, and then a 2 minute lap 9, and then a 2:06 on lap 10. So at some point there would have been an opportunity to overtake. But obviously Mark made the mistake and Alex cleared off, which I guess in a way answers the question, right? Where if the opportunity presents itself, then yeah, he's going to take it with both hands and go. And he's done that twice this year. Once in Thailand where Mark played the sneaky and tucked in, and again, I can't remember which track, but Mark made a mistake and Alex again led for the majority.
Argentina.
Yeah.
Because it was Mark who went past in turn 4 and then through. And we all said, will Alex respond? He couldn't. Mark was too fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think with Alex is a case of, especially with that, is that, well, more so for Mark, is the fact that a lot of riders can beat Mark when he makes a mistake. A lot of riders can't beat Marquez when they have to overtake him. I mean, look at Frankie, tried to make the move at the final lap there, and again, Marquez is wily old fox. He says, no, I'm not allowing you to have that. And it was great.
As soon as Mark crossed the line, I turned to my partner and I said, that's why he's an 8-time champion. Because you saw it in the 4 corners before. He knew what was happening. He knew where he needed to be and what he wanted to do. Frankie...
He invited him in.
Yeah, Frankie kind of ruined it by overtaking him earlier.
Yeah.
He warned Mark is there.
And that's the last thing you should do with any rider, but especially not him. Don't give Marquez an inch. He doesn't need it. You
do it last corner, last lap. Then he doesn't have time to retaliate. He'll still find a way. Did. But, yeah.
That's what Dovi used to do. He'd just wait, or be the person to defend against Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't beat Mark in a fight. A dog fight, it's not going to happen.
No.
But I like how he tried. Fair play to Frankie.
No, for sure. And he came close.
He did.
And fair play. And like I said, Frankie my script was on the verge of saying, what's happened to Frankie? What a downfall from the start he had. There he is, going blow for blow with Mark on the last lap. And I don't know if you caught it, but wow, Mark was not a happy bunny.
Yeah, he wasn't, was he? He didn't have anything to say. Was it, it is what it is, I'm angry, but sort of, yeah.
But we recovered. And then walked away. No smiles, no jokes, no dances.
He was punching the Prosecco sign. I'm not saying he was doing that on purpose, I'm so angry, but he was just sort of like knocking it about. There's not really Marquez. He'd be there dancing, having fun.
Yeah, exactly. But
this is what I said last season, and this is what I said to start when we started doing these podcasts at the beginning of KneeDown, is there was a difference for me from Mark with last year, and I've said it in my Discord server and everywhere else for the past year. Seeing Marquez now to last year and the many years before, it's not the same Marquez as the Honda days. This Marquez is now celebrating third places, second places, fourth places sometimes, last GP23 days. That old Mark is coming back. I'm not celebrating a third, I'm not celebrating a second, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for as a result, if you'd have said to Mark, you'll crash on the first lap, but don't worry, you'll still finish third, Pecco's going to crash out and Alex will be behind you, he'd have gone, all right, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. You basically don't lose any points this weekend to Alex, maybe like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But I don't think, he's not happy.
No,
he wasn't happy with that result at all.
No, and maybe because he finished behind Zarco, who we haven't touched on at all.
Good point. That's actually my next thing to talk about is Johan Zarco. Good segue.
But yeah, and I think I joked when Mark was behind Mir in your server that, do you think Mark's getting angry being behind a Honda? And maybe, that's twice now he's finished behind the Honda. But what a performance from Zarco. And I have a really interesting question now, is do Honda back off? Because they are going to lose
I see where you're going to go with this. I see where you're going with this.
And this is the thing that happened to Aprilia, right? In my own opinion, this is purely just an opinion rather than an educated guess or anything like that. Aprilia rose up really quickly because they had concessions. And I don't think they were ready when they lost them to lose them, because they kind of stagnated. They came there or thereabouts, but would they have been better with another year of concessions under their belt? Because it gives them so much in terms of testing. There's no cap on their engines. They can explore every and any option. Do Honda take that risk in next year not having any concessions and not quite being ready? Zarco's the only one who's delivering. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And he delivered in a wild wet race where 15 riders got double long lap penalties for starting from pit lane and there were bike swaps and everything. He made the biggest gamble. There is no scenario where a rider is taken out in turn 1, stays on the bike, runs through the gravel, comes back on dead last and wins in a MotoGP field. That doesn't happen. That shows you the extent of the peculiar circumstances. And then in Silverstone, the race was bizarre. I'm not saying the results were undeserved, but again, a bizarre race in which he came second. I don't think either of those two races were a true showing of Honda's performance as the results show in the black and white. And I think Honda could be at risk of shooting themselves in the foot in performing a little bit better in these circumstantial races, because Zarco doesn't, the wet wind doesn't count towards their tally of their podium tally. But what does count is finishing second in the Constructors' Championship.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And I think it's still within a percentage, it depends on how much concessions you get. But yeah, Honda for sure. You race to win.
It's a really, really tough question to ask that, because
Yeah.
I think you've got to think of the moral standpoint. If you're a racer, you race to win, as you've just said there. You will always will. And Zarco himself wouldn't care about constructor points and trying to be under the threshold so they get concessions. He's thinking of the present. He's 34 years old. I want to win a couple more races before I retire. Call it quits. Give me a nice big fat factory Honda paycheck. He'll be happy. But it's a bloody good question and a very tough dilemma, because, as you say, if you're not ready to make that jump yet, but you're on the precipice, you're getting closer and closer to it, you take that extra season of concessions, all that extra data time and moments of test, and you go into 2027 with a very clear identity of what's to come. I think with 2027 looming, I think that's a strategy that I think some teams will take. I wouldn't mind betting that if Yamaha is still not really there, or maybe KTM definitely, they'll probably just think, well, we'll just have an easy year, we'll come back next year, or we'll come back the year after with concessions and smash it.
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent question.
And look, by no means, maybe I worded it wrong in the beginning, by no means am I saying Honda are going to sit in a board meeting and discuss.
No, of course not. They're not going to sandbag either.
Yeah.
No.
But it just is an interesting circumstance in, if it's, I guess in layman's terms, if a school principal comes to you and says, look, I know you're in grade 3, but how do you fancy grade 7? You would know that you're kind of there, but do you maybe just another year just to make sure?
Yeah, you want to,
because I'm not quite there. Maybe grade 4, but 7 seems like a jump. And this is the thing, is what made me think of it more than anything was the interesting joke that Zarco made at the beginning of the British Grand Prix in the press conference was, yeah, now that Mark's gone, we're using his salary to develop the bike.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, and it's great, and Honda probably are. But if you're restricted from doing that, how far will Honda go?
I would not put it against any of these teams to sandbag, to be honest. And I'm not saying sandbag is where they just put extra weights on the bike and they can't go fast or whatever. I think it's a case of seeing these opportunities and playing it safer. When you've got nothing to lose, go for it. Who cares? You have fun. Like, as he's mentioned earlier, Max Cook this weekend, he's in Silverstone. It's not a career choice or a path of change. Just have fun. We brought you here just to have fun. It's a reward for being one of our top British riders. Go for it. So exactly. There could be a chance for the likes of Luca Marini and Joan Mears to say, well, I know it's a good weekend, but we want you to try some bits on the bike.
Yeah, exactly.
And focus on this.
And, it was sort of the point I was going to make is everyone spoke about Yamaha in pre-season, about how they're the dark horse. Ducati even said, we think they're going to be the competitors. And yeah, when you see Fabio's qualifying, it's, I get it. But you see the Yamaha and General's race results, and I don't get it at all. But Zarco and Honda are plugging away. And it's bringing Mir and Marini along as well, don't get me wrong. They're maybe not as high up as Zarco, but from where they were last year, miles better. And I just have that weird feeling of are they running before they can walk?
At the start of the season, we did the KneeDown bingo. You've done your list, I've done mine. There's something I put on there that for my KneeDown bingo was actually that Honda would have finished with 150 points or more this season. They're actually already on 110. Second in the Constructors' Championship. I thought Yamaha would be higher, but I thought that would be a realistic target. Yet Yamaha at the bottom with 84.
Yeah.
With 3 pole positions.
and if I said to you that, let's say we call the season here, right? And I said to you, Matt, Honda are going to finish second in the Constructors. You would think, oh, they must have won a couple of races, been there in the fight. But outside of these 2 results, they haven't. really been in the top 5.
And it's only Zarco.
Yeah.
It's only Zarco who's to talk about. No disrespect to Joan Mir or Luca Marini. Luca Marini still hasn't crashed, by the way. Absolutely amazing rider. Yeah. Joan Mir has crashed a couple of times.
But not as much as last year.
But not as much as last year, and he is still fast.
Yeah.
It's just that he crashes a lot. Yeah. So his results would be a lot closer to Zarco's if he didn't crash.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, Honda this weekend were amazing. Did they have all 3 riders in Q2?
No, Yamaha got 3 though.
Okay, yeah.
Which was still very incredible. It was Quartararo, Rins, and Oliveira. I think it was only Zarco who got through actually to Q2, was it?
Yeah.
I can see
it looked for sure like with practice that Honda were going to do it. But then again, there's the issue, right? You would look at Yamaha being there, and I wouldn't say Yamaha need to drop concessions either. I still think they have a long way to go. And I think next year's...
It was Luca Marini and Zarco both made it through. So it was 2 riders into Q2.
Yeah. Because didn't Marini make it through Q1?
Yes, he did. With was it Rins? With Morbidelli.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just missed out by 23,000 a second.
Yeah. Because, Mir towed Marini to the lap.
Could be gutted.
Thanks, man. No, you would. But yeah, I think this year is going to be really interesting when the dust settles at the end of the year. I think KTM, if they're still around, are going to have concessions.
Yes.
Because it's just not working right now.
I think KTM with concessions could be a big boost and it could change a lot of things.
For sure. But do they have the money? Because that's the next thing.
There's talks that they've been bought out, haven't they? And...
Yeah, but there's a difference between being bought out and being given money to pay your debt bought out. Because in essence, they've been bought out. They've lost their majority stake in their own company, but the money hasn't been there to inject cash flow. It's been there to pay the debt off. So they're not really getting any money. They're just staying afloat. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit more happier for the riders, I guess.
Yeah. And the problem now is, okay, I believe the company that bought them is an Indian motorcycle or motor car. I'm not 100% sure, but they're in automotive. So they kind of understand racing, but do they understand 70 million a year in racing? Yeah.
In the pinnacle of motorbike sports.
Yeah. But I have also heard that KTM racing team, MotoGP team, is a completely separate entity from KTM the factory.
I've also heard that too.
In terms of a business, anyway. So yeah, it'd be interesting. And that's been one rumour that kind of won't go away, is will KTM be there next year? I think they will. Pedro's definitely said he'll be with KTM next year if they're still there.
Fair play to him.
Yeah.
Martin was already ripping up the contract.
Yeah. Where's that Honda contract? So typical as well for him to come out saying it after Zarco wins on a Honda. And you know what? It makes sense. Why does it make sense? Because Aleix is the test rider. And who got Martin into Aprilia? Aleix. Yeah. So it does sort of make sense.
What if Aleix now becomes Yamaha test rider? You'll have to do another contract.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And pretty soon no factory will have him and he'll be back to a satellite team.
Random question though before we move on.
Yeah.
If Martin does move on this season, where do you see him going?
If
it happens.
I genuinely don't see him getting a factory seat.
No, I agree.
For that reason, I don't see him moving on.
He just stays as he is. If he does move, who do you think will be in the Aprilia seat with Bezzecchi?
That's a more interesting one. I think the obvious one is Agura. Yeah. Bump Agura up.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Slot him in really nicely.
Which is a really good segue because Martin's out, so Savadori's in. Agura's now out because by the looks of it, they're talking tendon, maybe ligament damage.
And for his tibia, which
Yeah,
is...
so it's at the base of the tibia, so into the knee joint, which, yeah, you kind of need that a lot. It's central to a lot of movement on a motorcycle.
So the question you're asking is, who's going to replace Ayagora?
Who replaces Ayagora? Because, I mean, it's something Flavio Rivio said. I hope he can come back for Aragon because we don't have a rider to replace him. Aprilia doesn't have a rider to replace him. So...
If there was no restrictions, who would you put on it? Would you give a Moto2 rider an opportunity? Or...
You know what? I'd give Marcos Ramirez a crack at it.
Okay, Aragon, yeah.
Yeah, I know that he's not
Captain
really...
Andalucia.
Yeah, he's not really in contention for the championship right now. Although, actually, he's not out of it. And the only reason I said is because of the American Racing Trackhouse, kind of America. It's
of course, yeah.
Kind of having an easier negotiation. But yeah, I think give someone a run on it. Someone who's maybe not in contention, who could be a Quartararo.
It's a shame Dovi's still under contract with Yamaha, because maybe now he could finally get that chance to try the Aprilia again.
Yeah.
Because he did try it a couple of times. I mean, if you listen to the KneeDown podcast, let us know in the comment section who you think would replace Ayagora, if anyone, for the next round in Aragon. Because if this sounds like he's going to miss more time than just Aragon, then
potentially, yeah. I mean, ligaments are not as quick to heal as bones, and if it's in that area, we could be potentially looking at like a Morbidelli scenario where he, fell over and did his knee and was never the same for 2 years.
Yeah, and the confidence took a massive hit, didn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess before we finish up then, conscious of time now, Craig, because we've been on quite a while actually, but the last thing to finish up with then really is just a couple of key takeaways, and I guess the championship picture. I actually had a look, it was 72 points. I gave you misinformation. It was 72 points at Pecco. Now stands behind Marc Marquez. Alex Marquez is not as far behind, but according to the standings, he is 24 points behind brother Marquez. And Frankie Morbidelli in fourth, 98 points behind. But here's the interesting one. Johann Zarco is only a point behind Morbidelli.
Yeah,
so
not bad. Yeah,
he could be fourth.
This is sort of the last note that I had made and wanted to sort of breach. That explains it perfectly well. Zarco's won and finished second now, and he's still 98 points behind Mark. Alex has had an amazing season, and he's 24 points behind. Pecco's been up and down, and really, it's not that bad, considering, 72 points behind. It explains the season he's had. What's more kind of impressive, though, is that, like I said, I mentioned it, they've had 5 different winners. Mark's crashed in 3 races, finished 2 really well, considering he crashed, and DNF'd in Kota. He's still leading the championship. It's not just Mark's talent, it's not just his ability to be fast and probably the best currently on the grid. No one else is taking it to him. Everyone's kind of tripping.
The gap is huge from everyone else.
Yeah, it's wild. 5 different winners. Everyone's, as much as Mark's winning this title, everyone else is gifting it to him at the same time, in the same breath. I don't want to diminish Mark's talents, but
no, of course not.
No one's bringing it to him. The best one is his brother, who we've literally been having a conversation about will he pass him or not, and that's no disrespect to Alex, but yeah, that's the state we're in at the moment. It's definitely not been that type of season though. It's been amazing so far. The racing has been incredible. Yeah,
it's not what we expected going into it. It did look a little bit okay. It is the same script from last year. We're going to see Ducati just dominate, but to think we've had a Aprilia and a Honda winner now, in 2 consecutive races, is just completely changing the script.
We've had a non-Spaniard and non-Italian winner in Zarco. Like, when was the last time that happened?
2.
Yeah.
So our last one, a race, is it? 23? Yeah. Did he win in 23? I feel like he didn't. Don't know. But yeah.
Maybe Binder. But I don't know if when he won in Austria, I can't
21.
remember how long ago. Oh, that was 21.
Yeah,
So,
slicks on the thingy. That's the
Yeah.
last KTM winner was Miguel Oliveira 2022 in Mandalika, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which is mad to think that it was Oliveira was the last KTM winner.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I mean, I was more thinking along lines of a non-European winner, which probably is maybe Miller if Binder was before then.
21 or 22? Yeah, possibly Aussie.
Yeah.
22 on the Yamaha, was it? I think it was, yeah. I remember Steve Day's commentary going, Aussie. It was brilliant. Yeah, I think it would have been, yeah. Wow, that's crazy to think.
Yeah. And I mean, and then you look at the Moto2 results, was an Australian from a Brazilian from a Colombian.
Yeah.
Someone I saw. Oh, forgive me if I get it wrong. Now Moto News. It's another motorsport publication. They proposed an interesting question. Someone answered it. I just briefly had a look at it. That Moto2 podium was the first time that it's happened since the 50s that there was a Southern Hemisphere domination, like a Southern Hemisphere lockout. Yeah, and the last one was two South Africans and an Australian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
To be fair, that's a good point. I mean, we're always seeing the Spanish, we're always listening to the Spanish national anthem. We hear the Italian one quite frequently. Yeah. Every now and again we get the British one. Not often, but more so in World Superbike.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I guess it's nice to hear some different ones every now and again.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, there's sort of a running joke that when the Spanish national anthem comes on, especially in Junior GP, because there's a lot of Spanish riders, that, you know, all mechanic in the team goes, "Oh, is that song from Top of the Pops?" You know, it's been number one for ages.
It's on all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there was only one Spanish winner this weekend, and that was Moto3,
which is not often.
Not often at all.
They come off the Spanish conveyor belt ready to win races in the World Championship level. That's what they do.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, and
so I guess
Quiles is the next one. Is
and
what
Carpe.
I was going to say. Yeah, and Carpe, yeah, and Rueda.
Yeah, they're all coming through.
Almanza, yeah.
Who did you pick to win the Moto3 Championship? Was it Piqueras?
I went Piqueras, yeah.
I went Rueda, thankfully.
Yeah.
It's looking promising.
I'd seen Piqueras in Junior GP, and I thought what I'd seen there, he was maybe going to deliver a little bit more than what he has. That's not to knock what he's delivered. It's easy to sit in a chair and criticize people
on the KneeDown Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I thought what I saw in Junior GP, Piqueras was going to be the boy, because they're all racing against each other now. You know, from Junior GP, they all move up. It is
just Junior GP 2.5, isn't it?
Yeah, and if they weren't racing each other, it's the next year that followed after them that's now in Moto3 as well. Yeah.
Yep. So. It's great. It's a great setup, but Dorna needs to do a lot better in promoting it. To be fair.
Yeah, that would be great.
We touched on that in the server, didn't we?
Yeah, and in fairness, there's more they could do, but they do quite a bit, all things considered. I mean, the official MotoGP socials will show the live races. I think they only focus on the Moto3, or they call it Junior GP.
Yeah.
Because that is, in essence, what the whole championship is about. It's called Junior GP, but there's other categories in there, and Junior GP is the shining gem, if you will, because it's the feeder to the MotoGP World Championship, Moto3. So
it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, if it pays the bills.
Any final remarks before we finish up tonight, Craig, my good man?
Yeah, I think congrats to Bez and Zarco. Outstanding. I mean, he did it in the dry, albeit weird circumstances. He showed up in the dry and rode his socks off. I don't know who rider of the day would be between those two, for sure. Moto2, let's there you go. Put Gonzalez on I's Aprilia, and when I repairs himself, get rid of Fernandez for Gonzalez. And
just slot him in.
Yeah, Moto2 will be interesting for the rest of the year.
Yeah, because he's head and shoulders, isn't he?
Yeah. So yeah, That's my takeaway.
I guess
note.
last question. We'll keep it short though. Fabio Quartararo ridered the race, but obviously only finished 50% of it.
Yeah.
Good conversation actually with. Want to shout out Bob in the Discord server. We had a conversation about this, and we obviously, as he said, there's no rules to a fan voting. But do you think the rider of the race should be the rider who didn't finish? Not like there's a right or wrong answer. It's just simply subjective.
I mean, it takes extraordinary circumstances. If a rider crashes, remounts, gets back into the lead, and then crashes again, you would be like, yeah, you know what? He rode his heart out.
He tried.
Let's give him something.
Yeah.
A moral victory. But only because of the circumstances of we didn't know how the soft tyre was going to pan out over the whole race. And Fabio, it wasn't the last 2 laps or the last 4 laps. It was 50% of the race. There was still you just do not know what's going to happen. So it's difficult to then say, how many people would be world champion if that was the mentality. I know you're saying there's no rules, it's a fan's vote.
Yeah.
You have to look at it that way. But you know what that does show? And someone mentioned it. The longest lines in the queue for autographs with riders at Silverstone this weekend, Marc Marquez, Fabio Quartararo.
Yeah,
Fabio's
he's a superstar.
He's the when they called them aliens, it was because of talent, but now it's a little bit more to it because they're all aliens, really. But yeah, Fabio, Marc are who people go to racing to watch and support. That there shows you the power, where he can lead 50% of a race, retire, and still get rider of the day.
Yeah. I'm surprised Marquez don't get it because his fans dwarf everyone else's.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see that they gave it Fabio. I do agree. I think Fabio was the rider of the race. But
for sure.
I'd also feel a little bit conflicted because he didn't finish the race. He was rider for 13 laps, absolutely was, but he couldn't continue because of the Yamaha. But again, it doesn't really matter. It's just a little bit.
It's a fan vote at the end of the day, and like you said, there's no prize on offer. There's no rules behind it. And yeah, I think it's for me shows less about it shows more who they wanted to win than who deserved to win. Fabio for sure deserved to win, but he didn't finish. So Bez deserved to win because he did win. It's as simple as that, And or Zarco deserved to win. In that instance, you could go on and on and on. Brad deserved to win because he's South African and had a bad sprint race. And
did you vote for
KTM
him?
could do with some morale.
You were sitting there voting for Brad.
Yeah.
I know you were.
Yeah.
You were like, had your camera up at the screen, getting that QR code.
Yeah. In the context of it being a fan-based thing and it not really mattering, yeah.
Yeah, it's just interaction, isn't it?
Great for Fabio. But in the real world of points win prizes and trophies are awarded to the top 3, no.
Yeah.
Well, the history books will not go back and say Fabio could have won.
No, they'll always remember that. Yeah, he won his first race with Aprilia.
Yeah.
But with Bez being the ultimate happy rider as a fast rider, I just hope he keeps this momentum going, and hopefully the Aprilia does a good job for the rest of the season too.
For sure. The one thing I did actually, it's kind of a comedic point to add in there, is I hope he doesn't think it's because of the mullet, because not for me. My hair's not great, but
clean shave, mullet, wins.
Yeah.
I know what I'm going to do tonight.
they are superstitious, and I got a feeling that he had that mop for a long time, and the first time he gets a mullet, he wins a race.
He's definitely keeping that.
It's staying. Yeah.
Well, Craig, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on the KneeDown Podcast. I do hope we can do it again. Yeah, for sure. No, it's been great. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. I think we got more or less through everything we had, but I mean, we got some more key takeaways, but I guess we can always meet up again when we get a chance and we'll recap some more, because no doubt, who knows what's going to happen when we wake up tomorrow. There might be some more information about something, or something else has happened again for us to come. Yeah, we did this last time with Guru, wasn't it? Oh God, yeah. It was second. It was it minutes afterwards? It was no less than an hour. It was 20 minutes after we finished. It was ridiculous time. Yeah, and then it was announced.
penalty.
Tyre pressure rule, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, there was 3 rides under investigation. Marini, Chantra, and who was the other one?
I think it was
Can't
Pedro.
remember. Yes, it was, yeah. There hasn't been any information or none that I've seen, so I guess we'll look into that. But yeah, cheers, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for listening or watching wherever you may be. I'm Matt from KneeDown and Craig, who's joined me today. So, guys, thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the videos on the channel. Ciao for now.